some of the things I think we'll also see along with this is like, where's the news? Who's the news, right?
Yeah.
Like legacy media kind of has to come back. And there's some alt media that's doing a really good job, and I think is sort of helping to fill that void. I always shout out Tablet. I always shout out the Free Press. I mean, I think they're really good examples of that. Um, like even like Matt Taibbi, whose name I don't know if I'm pronouncing correctly, and
Yeah.
Walter Kern, sort of on like the alt, like non-legacy media side. And then like we might see something like the Washington Post or the New York Times regain the credibility that they lost during COVID, because it's like we can't be just subscribed to like 50,000 newsletters and like piecemeal put it together and have all these like like micro cult leaders who are like it's their version of the news, right? It's just not
Hmm.
sustainable. We don't really want that, I think. Um, and but then it's like, where does local news fit in? It's like there's all these questions.
Yeah. So many questions when it comes to the news. I don't really know that Hollywood feels the same way to me. I mean, Hollywood was already kind of experiencing a death rattle, and then you had these fires, and now I can't tell you how many people I've heard it expedited their leaving LA and coming somewhere else. And I know there's a lot of push to move the industry in general just out of Los Angeles, but again, you see with AI and um, slop and so much content, and it seems like all of these industries, I don't know how to conceive of what they'll look like at all, because
Yeah,
I don't know that it will. I don't know that people will return to legacy media. Even if they tried. I saw even today, there was a whole thing going around about something that Trump allegedly said, and they're like, "They're taking away the food stamps. They're taking away the food stamps." And it's like, they're not. Political already changed the article where they said that was the case, and no one learned anything from 2017. So if you keep stepping on that rake over and over again, even after the lessons of 2017 and 2020, and now here we are in 2025, and you're still running with whatever you read without actually vetting it or reading source material or finding out if it's true, you're going to end up having people who don't want to defend Trump have to defend Trump, and you're going to continue to erode trust as a journalist or like a mainstream legacy media. And just today I was like, well, maybe they've learned, and it's like, no, I don't know that they have. Everybody just freaks out and reacts, and people really, part of the reason I think Trump even won this election is because people had so drastically left meet the legacy media behind already, and they went on this independent media podcast tour and snatched up all these particularly male voters. So I don't know that those people are ever coming back. At least I think that you'd have to cycle out of it for um generation like decades before maybe there was some kind of return to it. That's just my feeling. I don't know though.
I mean, you might be right. I just feel like, I mean, maybe we exist in a world where there is no news. I mean, I agree with you. With outlet like Politico probably doesn't have much of a future, or if it does have a future, it's small and niche, right? And then we just have all these like niche creators. The smaller creators get sort of filtered out, and it's like, we're all part of you're in the Joe Rogan ecosystem or the Theo Vaughn ecosystem or whatever, right? Um, but it just seems that like something's got to give. Like there's too much content. There's way too much content, and people get um exhausted by it. Right? You're also seeing like a lot of like new networks pop up. Like everyone's starting a network, everyone's starting a bundle because it's like they know there's too many voices. And I don't think a lot of them are going to survive because I think if you're starting one now, you're already too late. I think like you really want to get picked up by someone who's bigger, and as much as their credibility has diminished, like the New York Times and Washington Post still have they still have some pull, right? I think if they got their shit together this year, they could stand a chance of survival and not, um, I don't know, and not end up pushed to the wayside.
Yeah, it's interesting because we'd probably be the first on the chopping block by those standards, you and I. Maybe not
Yeah,
you, but probably me. I've been told for 5 years now, and Konstantin Kisin, I think maybe 2 or 3 years ago, maybe 2 years ago, he was here and he said, "You either need to blow up or you need to sell out." And I was like, "Well, sorry, I'm not blowing up fast enough." Like as if I'm not, as if everyone isn't trying to kind of reach that
right.
escape velocity where they don't need to worry about, whether or not they can continue to make content and pay the bills. But I also don't there's been many opportunities that I could have probably sold out to different organizations that I said no to because ultimately I still want to be able to say what I want to say, how I want to say it. And I guess maybe I'll never be a millionaire and maybe I will have to shutter things in the next couple of years. Perhaps that is true, but maybe I'll just make enough until I don't. I don't know. I'm not, I think I'm like a case study in what you're talking about. Will I need to like go sell my whole operation to someone much bigger in order to survive because there is so much content and people
I
have
mean,
some
I think
subscriber fatigue.
you underrate how big you are though, right? Like you retweet me like one time, I get 1,000 followers. Like you have you're not like middle of the road sort of, you know what I mean? Like you have a presence for sure.
Yeah, but I'm not. I guess I look at it solely from, can I support my one employee that I have, and we both, I mean, this is just like very inside baseball, but whatever, I'm pretty transparent. We both had to take pay cuts last year. Um it's coming on the heels of a baby and a move, so I knew that there would be, and a not great economy. So I knew there would be, those effects are always like years delayed. And we last year was like a make or break year for us and we did make it, but it's still, um I'm not making anywhere near what most of the people around me are making. There most of the people around me did get very big and are making millions of dollars, and I'm still making what would be considered a lower end middle class, living, which again, I'm completely fine with that because that's the dream. What that I'm doing what I love and doing it how I want to do it. But yeah, I think I'm a good example of someone that maybe won't survive this new, I mean, if I look realistically at these things, I may not survive this new evolution of this bifurcated internet where everybody's having to kind of,
I mean,
rebundle.
if you
We're
wanted to
gonna
be scooped up, I don't know if this is like appropriate to say on air. I mean, I think someone would scoop you up if you put the bat signal out.
yeah, like
I
if
mean,
I
I
was
see,
like
like if we're being real and not, I'll end this topic after this comment. I mean, if we're being like, who's going to survive, who's not going to survive, and I have like various like side hustles and what have you. Like, but I don't think like in this new world, people are going to be rushing to send Catherine Dee $5. You know what I mean? Like, but I don't think you have to worry. I mean, I'm at no risk of someone buying me out. But I think if you really wanted that and you felt like that's what you needed, if you put the I'm looking for work sign up like on LinkedIn, they people would want you because you're valuable.
but I feel
You bring
that
something
that way
valuable.
about you, but that's still not, but the original point is, um, we are both independent. It's like,
Right.
is there room in the same way that, like, with the music industry? everything went to all these giant labels, and you had all these independent labels, and the internet came along, and those independent labels, they were the first ones to go. Like, we're
Yeah.
independent labels in pretty corporate, everyone I know who also has blown up, aside from like some comedians who are very independent, but in terms of like the media outlets that we're talking about, they have investor money. They're not, it's not like they're just like bootstrapping it with subs. Like,
Yeah.
they have big dollars coming in to help. These people with money saw that they needed to create alternatives to this mainstream in order and give these people support in order for them to even survive. And now they're more or less corporate in some respects. So I think that's really the question. The question is there enough, are there enough resources out there with individuals to keep independent creators afloat? I don't know. A lot of it depends on how the economy goes too. I mean, people had a lot of disposable income during COVID. It was
Yeah.
almost like a fake
A lot of
sense.
time.
Yeah. For a while, and it was like when everybody converted their tapes to CDs, it was like a fake sense of what the market actually is, because you're like, "Look at all this, this is completely sustainable," but then you're like, "Well, no, people aren't going to concerts, they're not going to football games, they're not going to Disneyland, they're not going to, like, these
Yeah.
very expensive in real life places."
I think that's such a good analogy, and people don't think about that a lot, that, like, CDs were actually a transition period, like, that was like a what did someone call it on, I read some list of predictions, and someone called, like, these false starts a dead cat bounce, and, uh,
Mm.
CDs were a dead cat bounce for the music industry.
Yeah. I mean, it gave them a false sense of what CD sales would look like, and I think the pandemic did that for independent creators. At the same time, it was creating more and more independent creators because everybody was just locked up.
Sure.
So it created this, like, huge, huge amount of content, and people blew up, and then, things normalized, and now that it's completely saturated and not everyone's gonna make it. And it is interesting, like, I wonder how like, indie brands will, but I'm determined, I'm going down with the ship.
Well, I was gonna say, like, some people will just quit because it's hard, right? It's like, and
Yeah.
it's tough. You look at something like OnlyFans, which, like, moral hesitations about that aside, right? Like, part of the reason a lot of people fail at OnlyFans is, well, it's oversaturated, right? They don't have what it takes, talent wise, let's say. But also, like, it's a craft. I'm not saying it's one that's like deserving of the most respect in the world or whatever, but it's a craft, and there's certain rules you need to follow to succeed. Same with content creation. So it's like when they say, like, X, like, impossibly small percent of OnlyFans creator earns over like $600 a month, right? Like, a big piece of that puzzle is like, well, how many of those are updating regularly, updating in the right way, or offering the services that you know generate cash? And it's the same with people who are creating content. So that's like one level of it. So, like,
Mhm.
obviously you're like way past, you don't have to worry about that. You got the formula down, right? And then
Ish.
like there's
We're always iterating. I mean,
yeah.
ish. We just changed our format for Dumpster Fire. We just moved Walk-ins Welcome off our main YouTube channel, had to start another YouTube channel. We took it back from our, um, we had, like a network that we were on, and we took it back, and now we're selling all of our ads ourself, which is a whole other job in and of itself, and, like, we're truly an indie record label right now. I was trying to explain this to my cousin, I'm like, she's like, we are working so hard. It is insane. And I was like, we're in our indie
You
record label years.
you do in-person events. You know what I found is like really
I want
successful?
to.
You should. This is just like content craft hour now.
Hey, Hey,
But
it's
and
good. There's a lot of people who, like, love these conversations because you and I talk a lot about the kind of inside mechanisms of this, and as we talked about on our last podcast, people keep this, like, weirdly a secret. Like, they have to
I know,
act
it's like,
like, "Oh,
why?
this is all just happening," and you're like,
You know
"It's a
what I
lot of
hate?
fucking work."
And I might have said this on the last time we talked about this. I hate when people are like, "Well, I just sort of accidentally fell into this, and I didn't really want to." It's like, "Bitch, you worked your ass off. You sucked
Yeah.
so many dicks to get here. Like, who are you fooling?" Metaphorically, they didn't lit the person I'm obviously referencing in my mind, it worked. They published, right? Like, no one falls in no one keeps up a content creator career because, oh, it was just an accident. I never expected it. I'm so humble about it. No, you're just be real. You wanted it, you love it, and you worked for it.
Yeah. And it's not like anyone who does content creation knows what bullshit that is.
It's
Like,
so annoying. I
that
hate when people
might
say it
seem
to me.
real to people who don't have to do it because they're always like, "Get a real job." I'm like, "You know how many times I've joked to my husband that I was gonna go back to waiting tables because it's easier than like, this is amazing and it's creative, but" and we were talking about this on, ironically, a recent dumpster fire that, like, did the most poorly of one in a while, where we were talking about how we all sound like psychopaths talking about feeding the algorithm. I'm like, we sound like primitive people talking about the gods, like the way
Yeah.
we all talk about the algorithm is like, oh, if we don't feed it for 3 days, it will get angry. It will turn on us. We cannot anger the algorithm. We must keep bringing it offerings for it to keep paying attention to us, or it will rain hellfire upon it. It's just like no one really fucking knows. And now with AI, this invisible god that is driving it all, we sound like crazy people, but it is so much of what you're constantly trying to manage because all of these platforms are also constantly changing their algorithms with changing preferences and politics and ownership or whatever and censorship rules or not censor it is bananas, and anyone who acts like it's easy is a liar. And I know all these dudes who are psychotic about this stuff, and they pay people to analyze every card that they use on YouTube. I mean, they're like autistic about YouTube and
Sure.
trying to hack the algorithm, trying to figure out what the new algorithm is. There are teams of kids in India who are doing this for every platform, looking at what works, when, it's like no one people are full of shit if they act like this just happened. It's
Yeah. I mean, and like even to the there are some creators that I could think of, right, who where they clearly did just get lucky and they're not doing it on any kind of schedule. But then it's even like for them to have gotten lucky, like getting lucky means the right person noticed you. Even
yeah,
then, it's like you have to network, you have to say the right things. There's no version of this where you're just blessed by the creator gods and you're suddenly famous. Like you have to, drum up the right controversies. Don't piss off the wrong person because that'll haunt you
unless
for
you're like
life.
Hawk Tuah,
Oh my God. What happened? How did that even? She was like smart for a minute.
and then stupid or something,
Yeah.
or she's sitting on a beach earning 20%.
I mean, maybe. Or she's
Like,
the pending lawsuit.
I mean, look, if yeah, or that, or both. I mean, if I were her, I would just leave the country and go live in Sri Lanka. She She may have been smart enough to see that, like, that 15 minutes when you blow up overnight like that, it's not as easy to create content as you think, and to maintain relevance, you have to, that level of relevance, you have to live up to to that, and you might just wanna do a pump and dump and grab, like, 50,000,000 or whatever and get out.
Call it a day. Yeah, I mean, maybe.
That would be the smart thing, truly, for her.
Yeah, yeah, because it's like, how much does she have to say? You know? It's not like she's doing any kind of project. Yeah, just get your bag and walk away.
Yeah, when you're at your peak.
Yeah,
I mean,
and I
I
don't
was
think she'll
looking
be
at
forgotten.
no, I was looking at it was a moment. I was looking at her even podcast numbers, and you can see, like, just on YouTube, like, they just start slowly declining because you were a cultural moment and a flashpoint, but are people gonna tune in to you every week? I maybe, but it seemed like, I probably would've just grabbed the bag on as soon as I noticed that star was falling, I'd be like, "Get me out." But maybe she's just pending a lawsuit, and she's not
Maybe,
allowed to talk anymore.
it could be both. Maybe it's both.
But
But I
this
do
is
think
that
it's a lawsuit.
that kind of viral fame, like, I've never chased it, I've never wanted it. It seems like it comes with so many more problems than opportunities in the long run, and it's, I kind of prefer the slow and steady, just, like, plot, on the internet,